An Israeli court acquitted 2 Israeli security officers who beat this Eritrean refugee named Habtum Zarhum.
Which is, it doesn't seem like they're protecting our lives if we're fending for black lives, if we're asking for police accountability.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. Most people regard the murder of George Floyd as a public lynching. We start with news about another lynching, this one in Israel. An Israeli court acquitted 2 Israeli security officers who beat this Eritrean refugee named Habtum Zarhum. They had been filmed beating him with 2 others and repeatedly dropping a bench on his head while he was still alive. But the judge ruled he had already been shot 8 times, and so the beating was not the real cause of his death. The soldiers got off scot-free. The killing took place in 2015 in the city of Beersheba. An Israeli Bedouin citizen seized a soldier's gun and opened fire in a bus station, killing a soldier and wounding a number of others. He ran away but was shot dead. Habtum Zarhum was also shot because he was assumed to be involved in the terrorism because he had a dark skin. 2 civilians pleaded guilty to minor charges. They each paid the equivalent of $600 to the refugee's family, and one got 4 months in prison. The security officers refused to cop a plea and waited for the court's decision. In his ruling, the judge said, "For reasons that remain unclear, there were those who suspected the deceased was the terrorist, and due to this suspicion, he was shot by the central bus security officer." Orly Noy, writing in the Israeli site 792 Mag, said, "There are many things to be said about the vile ruling handed down by Judge Mishnayot, who previously served as the head of military courts in the occupied West Bank. Let's begin with the feigned innocence of 'for reasons that remain unclear.' The reasons for the killing are very clear to all. Habtum, suspected of committing an attack because he was a black man in a Jewish white supremacist state. 4 Israelis took part in a racist lynching, and the sum total of $1,200 was paid to the family, a few months in jail time to the 2 civilians, and total acquittal for the 2 police. We'll link to the articles about the lynching on the Struggle website. Now to Hartford, Connecticut on July 23rd. Connecticut Governor Lamont says it's safe to open schools, but a number of Connecticut teachers and parents are very concerned. A group of teachers held a car caravan of protest. One of their demands calls for a fully funded, safe return to school. That includes starting off fall 2020 with distance learning, phasing in-person learning gradually, training for teachers to do distance learning, and adequate funding to ensure PPE for all staff in the schools. We then went to the Capitol and came across a rally by workers of the union SEIU 1199.
And you're fully gowned up. See that? That's 2 weeks. Imagine it's only been a couple hours I've been out here. Imagine I have to do the same mask for 2 weeks.
Where did you wear that for 2 weeks?
No, I wore this today for 2 hours.
Right, I see. Where do you work?
Eye care, for eye care facility. Bidwell, West Side, Farmington, Bloomfield. All the folks in these facilities are going crazy because guess what? We don't have the right equipment and people are getting sick.
So even now, after all these months, you don't have
Still gotta wait. Still gotta wait for a while. Still gotta wait.
Okay. Would you care to give your name?
My name is Yuri. Y-U-R-I. Westry. W-E-S-T-R-Y. CNA at Bidwell Care Center.
Thank you. So Lucas, could you explain what SEIU is trying to do today here at the Capitol?
So our goal here at the Capitol, while the lawmakers are going into a special session, is to draw attention to a couple different issues. First and foremost is lack of adequate access to PPE, personal protective equipment, masks, gloves, face shields, things like that. We have had 14, I believe, members of our union pass away after contracting COVID. We've had people that have reported since the beginning of the pandemic that they don't have any PPE, no access to it. Currently, the way the state has it set up, the only way for us to get it is for our consumers to order it. We don't have direct access to it, and the consumers that we're working with are people that need our help with day-to-day tasks. So
who do you mean by consumers?
So I'm a home health care worker. My client is a gentleman with developmental disabilities. Other people work with folks with physical disabilities, but they need our help to do things like bathe, cook, clean, get around to appointments, things like that. Just about anything that we take for granted as able-bodied people that they might need assistance with, we're there for them. So we don't have a job description. Our job can range from a million different things. So we need them to order the PPE before we can even get it. The state used to meet with us weekly for a labor management committee meeting, and then without any input from us, they unilaterally decided that that was too often and we were going to be meeting every other week instead. During those meetings, we've expressed that we don't have adequate access to PPE, and they have told us that that's not true. They've seen nursing homes where they have closets full of PPE, and that the people that work in nursing homes that have chosen to wear trash bags, that's a choice that they've made. It's not because they don't have any PPE, it's because they would prefer to wear a trash bag than wear PPE. We tell the state that's blatantly not true, and they just don't believe us. So what we're looking for is PPE and respect from the state, and for them to trust us and believe us as professionals in this workforce.
Is there a particular bit of legislation you're looking for?
Yes. The Long-Term Care Act and the Healthcare Workers Bill of Rights.
And what is in that?
The Healthcare Worker Bill of Rights has a bunch of different points. I don't have them all memorized. There's other folks from the union here that do. Like Claire.
And I'm a PCA from Middletown, Connecticut, and an 1199 member. And the three main things that we want from this bill is adequate PPE for all caregivers, all PCAs, so that we can protect ourselves and protect our clients, consumers, anybody that we care for, which we've had struggles getting in the past, and actually even in the present, a lot of people are still going without PPE, so we need to have that ready for the next phase of COVID. And we also need to have them respect us as the experts in this field, because when we keep on telling them what we need, the state, then they don't always believe us. And they say, oh, well, we checked our stats or whatever, you know, we interviewed people and we think that you're okay and you're safe. And we weren't, and we keep on fighting and fighting, and we've had to beg and plead for everything that we've gotten, and we're still begging and pleading. And we just want long-term care workers to be taken seriously and to be respected, like they call us heroes. But, you know, how do you treat heroes? You give us no PPE, you don't give us adequate pay half the time, we don't have benefits, we don't have health care, we don't have any time off. They're not even, they're rejecting workman's comp for people who have gotten COVID on the job, saying you can't say that you got COVID on the job, you could have gotten it anywhere, which is madness, because obviously without PPE and everything that we need, caregivers can't do their job safely. So we're in contact with our consumers and our clients. You know, we can't stay home. We need them to have all of these things for us so that we can have a long-term, so that long-term caregivers will have everything that we need to take care of our clients.
About how many SEIU people would you say are up here now?
Oh, wow, I don't know. A few hundred, 150? I'm not sure exactly. I mean, we have so many PCAs, but of course, a lot of them are working. You know, it's a Thursday afternoon, so I'm sure a lot of people want to be here with us, but they're with us in spirit, and we're fighting for all of us.
There was a rally forming for Black Lives Matter. We just had time to take a few photos and do a couple of interviews.
And I am the Secretary of Power Up Manchester. We are a grassroots organization that focuses on racial justice and equity and dismantling systemic racism in every form. So we do daily protests where we call out the systems that have racism within them, such as education, healthcare, housing, and especially the judicial system. We are a brand new organization, so we are still working on creating and completing our mission. But right now, we have already gotten Manchester, Connecticut to declare racism a public health crisis, and that is just the beginning. We are going to keep working and continue to create and dismantle the systems that are perpetuating racism. So we want to ensure that the schools teach their curriculums from a social justice lens and ensure that every viewpoint is represented, not just the one viewpoint that we've gotten, which is historically the white male perspective. It leaves a lot of context out of the history that we get. We basically get like a Disneyland version of what history is in our schools. So we are trying to ensure that the children grow up with a better, more comprehensive education. We are trying to dismantle the system in the judicial aspect, where we're trying to defund the police and reallocate those funds to the communities, because statistics show that if you put the money into the communities, then there will be less need for the police to patrol those communities. Also, police don't really prevent crime, they just police it and reprimand it. So that's part of what we do at Power Up. And again, like I said, we're brand new, we're starting up, so there's a lot more work to be done.
And if people wanted to get a hold of you, is there a website or an email?
Yes, Power Up Manchester on Facebook. You can follow us on Facebook, and Power Up CT on Instagram.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
You and some of the others here are wearing a shirt from the ACLU, and it says "People, Not Prisons." Would you like to talk about the situation?
Yes, so the Smart Justice Campaign is a campaign centered around people that are living with a criminal record and ensuring that once they've paid their debts to society, they're able to get a fresh start on life, reintegrate into community well, and really have the same opportunities that everybody else is awarded after they've paid their debts to society.
What's the situation now? Do they face discrimination in housing or things like that?
Yes, so folks living with a criminal record often face discriminations in terms of employment, education, housing, insurance, building their own businesses, different things like that. basically, you know, people make assumptions that, again, after they've already did their time and paid their debts to society, that they are no longer trustworthy, when in actuality, folks that often reintegrate into community after being in prison understand that this is their opportunity to restart life, and people really just want to be able to get back to work, support their families, and live their lives as peacefully as possible.
Now, I use the term ACLU. I don't know if everybody knows what that stands for, if you could tell us.
Yeah, the ACLU stands for the American Civil Liberties Union. And there is a national organization and then affiliates in all 50 states.
Do you take a stand on the issue of mass incarceration? And
Yes.
The question of whether people should be freed from prisons?
Yes, we believe that there should be an end to mass incarceration. Mass incarceration disproportionately affects Black and non-Black people of color all throughout the country. And even in Connecticut, at least 70% of folks that are currently incarcerated now are Black or Latino. And we believe that there should be other opportunities for people to be able to pay their debts to society after making a mistake. Mass incarceration does nothing to help anybody except take people off the streets and put their lives on pause indefinitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The West Haven Police Commission won't let people make statements before their meetings on Zoom. On July 21st, people went to the police station where they were allowed to go in one by one to speak. Some had signs. This one asks local police to adopt Governor Lamont's new regulations that are binding on state police, new common decency rules, things like warning suspects before using deadly force. Several were alarmed that on the internet people were seeming to threaten violence. This message was copied from the net. Get the guns out. This message warns that if she were stopped like the woman who drove through a crowd on the road, that she'd just keep on driving. Brandon Patterson also raises the question, why aren't West Haven police accredited by Connecticut Standards and Training Council? I did 2 interviews. So what do you intend to say inside?
Okay, what we want to say inside is basically, we don't understand the inaction of the West Haven Police Department when it comes to protecting protesters. We also don't understand the escalation of circumstances by only focusing exclusively on protesters following an incident that was clearly visibly recorded where they were attacked and nothing has been done. We want to address that point first. We also want to address why this department continues to not be accredited. We also want to address if this department is falling in line with the governor's recent Executive Order 8, for police accountability. We want to know if chokeholds are banned. We want to know if we will no longer use dogs to sick on people. We want to know if we will have a police department that is fully compliant with the executive order. That means no more no-knock warrants. That means in all deference towards escalation. And we would like to see some accountability finally. And also, we want to know why it's taking so long for a culmination of investigation that is clearly visible. It's been covered by how many local news sources, and everyone can draw their own conclusions by someone that drives over the yellow line and accelerates into protesters.
You're talking about the July 5th?
I'm talking about the July 5th protests and the inaction that has come from the police department that has escalated this situation, and that didn't need to take place. We want to hope that this is not indicative of the attitude of the police, but we can only get one impression, which is it doesn't seem like they're protecting our lives if we're fending for Black lives, if we're asking for police accountability. We need those things addressed explicitly by this police department, and that first comes with beyond an investigation. It means actually arresting the woman who accelerated into a crowd of peaceful protesters, and we want accountability for why the police was not present at the scene. If we're hearing about recent articles saying there's $100,000 in overtime spent and all the excess stress on the police that these protests have taken to the department, but we don't understand why they were not present when protesters were accelerated upon and nothing was done once a woman was corralled.
Thank you. And
I don't remember who's the one that
people, everybody's behind masks, so could you identify yourself?
Oh, my name is Brandon Patterson, and I am a citizen of West Haven, born and raised. I'm also on the West Haven Town Committee, newly serving, just got inaugurated in January, and hoping to have all of our concerns addressed.
As we record, news comes that the Connecticut House passed a police accountability bill. Now the legislation goes on to the Connecticut Senate. One of the issues being talked about is police using leftover military equipment that's given to them by the U.S. government and the resulting militarization in police responses. This matter was discussed at the Elder Rally last week in New Haven.
It is very commonly known that those towns or places where militarization of the police takes place, that the likelihood of people being killed increases because the mindset is no longer about safety of the people. It is simply about safeguarding oneself, so that the idea is not to stop the situation or to de-escalate, but to escalate to death. And we do not want that as the standard for policing in our city, our state, or our country. So there are ways that people are looking at how do you stop militarization of the police. And many of we have legislation going forth in an attempt to review those things. I do believe that there are lights at the tunnel, and that there are towns that may not have chosen not to pull in militarized equipment. And we commend those towns, we commend those cities, because they understand the vision to some extent. But some of the things that we want to restrict police from doing, we want to restrict them from using federal grant money to purchase military equipment. We want to ensure that stop them from deploying armored vehicles and weapon crafts, drones, stingrays, camouflage uniforms, etc. And we want to ensure that using SWAT teams, that they don't use SWAT teams unless there is a true emergency situation or imminent threat to life, and high-ranking officers have given approval. This should not be done just in willy-nilly, as my grandmother would have said. It's important. It's also important to avoid conducting no-knock raids that are so problematic. Breonna Taylor is dead because of no-knock raid, which is a military tactic. We want to restrict accessing federal monies for purchasing military equipment if the department has been recently found to demonstrate a pattern or practice of discriminating policies. So many states, so many police units are discriminating, and we need to ensure that these weapons are not used as a way to threaten those brown and black and those people who are not in power. In addition, I do believe it's important that these restrictions, wherever possible, wherever agencies should seek to return to the military government any military equipment that they have already received. It's time to get rid of those things in our community. Demilitarization means service to the community and safety for the people of every community. Thank you.
And the issue of civilian review boards.
Good morning. I am Dory Dumas, president of the Greater New Haven branch of the NAACP.
But while we're protesting and we're rallying and demanding, we're keeping focus on redressing the institutional racism and moving towards bold action. So today, one of the things that I'm going to speak on that we're calling for, and the NAACP is standing with the elders and others, is we're calling for and we want implementation of citizen review boards with subpoena power for all surrounding police departments, not just New Haven, all surrounding police departments. And we don't want them to just be in place in name only and have no teeth and have no power. So what we're asking is that we want the civilian review boards to have real power, accountability, and authority.
That's our program for today. Next week, you'll see a portion of an interview I did with Michael Dunham, who's an artist completing an impressive Black Lives Matter mural in Bridgeport. You can actually see the whole interview now if you go to the YouTube section on thestruggle.org. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller for The Struggle.